if you follow that pyramid, that's the best way to approach longevity. Yeah, move around a lot, lift a couple times a week. Again, twice a week is enough to lift for longevity. Sprint once a week. And I'm talking about like 6 to 8 repetitions of 30 to 40 seconds. Done.
Welcome to Barbell Shrugged. I'm Mike Bledsoe here with Doug Larson and Alex Macklin. And we're hanging out here in Austin at PaleoFX. And we have one of the quintessential speakers, representatives of the paleo primal movement, and Mark Sisson. And you've been coming to this conference
since the beginning.
Yeah. How'd they rope you in?
Yeah.
In the very, very beginning.
That's pretty funny. No, I mean,
because
it was
first year conferences. It's tough to get great names in.
No, I mean, as a spokesperson of the paleo community, I want to participate. I want to help, drive traffic. A rising tide lifts all boats. Whatever other cliche you could come up with, I was willing to participate.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I think we've all been following Mark's Daily Apple for a while.
Long time.
Came up on my radar maybe in, I don't know, 08, 09? Would that be?
Oh, well, 6 is when I started.
When but it went on my radar.
Oh, sorry, man. Yeah, before you were born, it started.
Youngin.
Yeah. What got you started doing Mark's Daily Apple?
Well, so like I've been in health and fitness my whole life. Initially as an athlete and training, and then when I got injured, I started coaching people. So I was always interested in performance. That led to a stint as the anti-doping commissioner for the sport of triathlon worldwide. So I started deep diving.
You were the bad guy.
I was the guy who oversaw every hearing.
And you were in triathlon.
Yeah,
triathlon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But the research that went into that not only looked at the performance-enhancing drugs, but also the things people could take that were maybe helping their performance, but were legal. So as I got deeper and deeper into that, I got a really profound knowledge of all of the supplements and even eating styles that athletes would use to improve performance. Rolled that over into starting my supplement company 21 years ago at the age of 43 with a wife and 2 kids and no money in the bank. How crazy was that?
That's how most people start businesses.
I know. So
it's like the scariest shit, especially if you have kids.
No,
right?
that's the point. I mean, I would have been okay with my wife being out on the street in the car with me, but not my kids. So anyway, but it was a calculated risk. I actually had some consulting gigs lined up to help pay the way while I was creating a line of products. So I found a television deal where I could go on TV on a local cable, actually not too far from here, a Texas talk show on health and fitness called Know the Cause. And I became a regular on the show, and I had my supplements, and I'd sell them on the show. And I was trying to sell them to athletes in magazines, in Triathlete Magazine and Runners World Magazine. I got no traction from the athletes, but I had little old ladies who read the anti-aging magazines and read about all of these different supplements, CoQ10, L-carnitine, high-potency multivitamins, milk thistle for the liver, and all these things. And I thought, well, wait a minute, this is my market. It's much easier to talk to these people than it is to cram this down an athlete's gullet, somebody, particularly endurance athletes who, after they've had their goo and their fuel, they don't really care that much apparently about micronutrient supplementation and whatever. So I pivoted to this TV show, which my company grew 6% a year for 7 years. It was fantastic. I had a great business. And then all of a sudden, 2004 rolls around, and the business literally dries up. At 2004, there was the advent of the Internet, so now people are buying things on the Internet. People aren't watching TV as much, or if they are, there's now 300 channels to choose from.
Well, you were marketing in a channel that
basically
you didn't have a lot of competition.
So when that went away, I took a year and I said, well, this is fine. I know content, I know television. I'll produce my own television show. So
Sounds easy enough.
I actually produced 50 half-hour episodes of a health talk show called Responsible Health. I bought time on Travel Channel. It was on every morning at 8:30. Did you see it?
No, but I didn't know that.
Okay, nobody knew it, man. Nobody knew it. So I blew through $1 million doing that, and at that point I go, this isn't gonna this isn't scalable.
Right.
So that's when I started blogging in 2006. I go, well, I'm great at creating content. I'm a good storyteller. People, like to, hear about health and fitness and diet and exercise. So I started writing about all aspects of this, and I'd written books on training, and I've been a sort of a researcher for 30 years, so I had a lot of material, a lot of ideas in my head. So it really quickly formed into Mark's Daily Apple, and then the Primal Blueprint, which is a brand, emerged from that, and then the book was sort of a response to people who said, well, I'm reading what you're writing every day, and it's all interesting, but can you put it all into one compressed format in a book? And that became the Primal Blueprint. So then I couldn't find a publisher for it, so I self-published. And the next thing you know, I'm a publishing company. So now I have, we've published 35 books now, about 8 in my own name, but I publish other authors. And it just kind of evolved. The brand evolved over the last 10 years, and it's gotten a lot more traction, partly because of a community like we have here at this event, partly because there's just been a growing interest in performance and health and diet and exercise and science. And I've kind of tried to read the tea leaves there and figure out what, where the pain points were for the community and how I could offer services, whether it's more books or events. I did seminars for a while. I did 3-day events, not unlike this. I had Primal Con was one of the things. I had one in Austin about
I remember
5
those
years
going
ago.
on.
Yeah. So, but I'm not an event guy. It was like way too much work to put on an event. So over the years, I got away from focusing on supplements, and I started making. And it like only 3 years ago, I realized I'm writing a lot about food, and how diet is really critical to your accessing good health, and certainly if you're a performance athlete. And you don't even have to be a performance athlete. If you're doing any kind of exercise in the gym, you're working out on a regular basis, diet is so critical.
Nutrition is the fundamental.
It's the fundamental. I mean, we say a lot, 80% of your body composition is determined by how you eat. Yeah, you still have to work out, but really 80% of it's determined this way. So I started thinking, well, wait a minute. So it's about food, and then what's missing in the food space. And from my own experience, particularly offering up recipes every week on how to make your own dressings and your own bone broth and your own condiments, like how to make your own mayonnaise, because there's no good mayonnaise anywhere to be found in any store. I'm not a big fan of the vegan can't name that, but vegan products. So I said, well, let's look at the food space. Really, when you get right down to it, if you start eating clean, if you get rid of the grains and the sugars and the industrial seed oils, you're kind of left with a small group of foods that you can actually enjoy, right?
Yeah.
There's maybe 5 kinds of meat you're going to eat next year.
Yep.
Beef, lamb, pork, probably
Chicken.
elk and wild boar, chicken, turkey, fish.
How'd you know?
Yeah,
You forgot the moose.
That's right. And a couple kinds of fish, and then I dare you to name me 17 vegetables you'll eat next year. And that's it. It's what makes the difference is what you put on the food, the sauces, the dressings, the toppings.
For
right?
sure.
So, and yet there were no great sauces. I mean, I think the sort of mantra we've heard for the last 20 years, particularly when it was a low-fat environment, was, use that stuff sparingly. You can add a little bit of flavor, but don't use too much because it's bad for you. So I want to create products that the more you put on the food, the healthier the meal became.
Yeah.
And so that was the driving force behind the first mayonnaise, and then now we have flavored mayonnaises, and we have 5 salad dressings with a few more coming down the pipeline. It was really about how do we create the types of sauces and dressings and snacks in this case where it not only doesn't interfere with my diet, it adds to the enjoyment.
Yeah.
Like my main thing about the motto of my company is live awesome. Okay, and so we try to look at ways in which we can extract the greatest amount of pleasure and satisfaction and enjoyment, contentment from every moment possible, right? I mean,
I like
that. Live your life.
That's why we're doing that, right?
Yeah.
So that includes food. So I say I don't want to put any bite of food in my mouth that doesn't taste absolutely phenomenal. You can tell me, oh, geez, Mark, I got this great kale salad here with, it's got a little bit of drizzled dressing on it, and I'm not a big fan of kale, particularly if it's, isn't soft and kneaded and probably left out overnight. So, but I'm not, just because it's healthy doesn't mean I'm going to choke it down. So I want every bite of food I consume to taste fabulous, and that is the driving force. So every product we make, first it has to taste fabulous. Second, it has to have clean ingredients, and those become sort of the main R&D characteristics for everything we develop.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't eat well because they think I have to
healthy
eat
food tastes bad.
Just baked
chicken breast.
Chicken breast and broccoli.
Chicken breast.
And
that was sort of bodybuilder mainstay diet
for chicken and rice every day.
40 years. Yeah.
Yeah. What got you to go down the primal paleo path in the first place? Was that something you were always practicing?
Yeah. So because I was an endurance athlete, and in college I was really fascinated by evolution. So I looked at evolution, and I got a picture in my mind of how humans evolved, and how we evolved in certain with certain capacities to run long distance and to become stronger by lifting things. And even before we started really deep diving into genetic science, I was aware that genes turned on or off based on signals that we gave them. So in 1982, I wrote my first book, the Runner's World Triathlon Training book, and in that book I talk about evolution. I talk about how we evolved with certain traits, and that we could develop those traits by training specifically in certain modalities, so that lifting weights would create a certain type of muscle, and doing long distance stuff would create a longer muscle with more slow twitch fiber. So I combined my strong interest in evolution with what became over the ensuing decades this greater body of knowledge on genetic science, and how genes, like every study you look at now, what it looks at is how the genes are turned on or how genes are expressed.
Right.
So that's kind of fascinating to know that we have such immense power over how our genes turn on or off. It's literally like a superpower. Like you can recreate yourself, rebuild yourself, renew yourself, regenerate yourself minute by minute based on certain choices you make.
Yeah.
And it's really powerful.
I think a lot of people don't operate from the place where they realize they can change.
Yeah,
they assume that
people think that the genetics are
that's
their destiny, but you have a choice by the actions that you take.
Exactly. Yeah. So my job for the last 10 years anyway is to discover these hidden genetic switches and what turns them on or off, and give you if not a roadmap, at least some options, some choices as to how to manifest that.
Can you give some specific examples?
Yeah. So I mean, like within the paleo community, we talk about like industrial seed oils are high in omega-6 fats. Well, omega-6 fats are necessary for the human body, but an imbalance.
It's the ratio between
O6 and O3 can drive up inflammation. So you take in too many omega-6 and not enough omega-3, and it turns on genes that cause inflammation. Well, when inflammation is great when you're injured, or when you're sick,
but chronic
systemic inflammation just it's like setting a fire throughout the entire body, and that's when stuff happens. I mean, that's when we talk about the root cause of heart disease not being cholesterol clogging your arteries like a pipe. It's not a plumbing sort of scenario. But it's
like an oversimplification.
Yeah, it's a wicked oversimplification.
Yeah, it's like doctors for a long time and researchers were thinking about things in just a very mechanical model.
Totally. So what we do know is it's largely a result of oxidation and inflammation, and there are different pathways that get involved, and certain catalysts have to become involved as well. But if you turn on the genes that cause systemic inflammation, and that inflammation is happening in the bloodstream, then certain things take place that wouldn't ordinarily take place.
Or take place.
Yeah, exactly. That set you up for creating blockage or an embolism or a clot or something like that. And, we go down certain behaviors will downregulate genes that build muscle. So you get atrophy, and because the body is elegantly set up to not waste any energy. And if you're just sitting around doing nothing all day, then the body gets that signal and says, you know what, if we're going to do nothing, we better just decrease our engine size because we don't need it.
Yeah.
If we're not going to be doing weight-bearing activity, let's decrease the bone density. We don't need that. Why would we, waste resources keeping something we don't really need? So the body's very efficient that way. And so you get a downregulation of all those systems. On the other hand, when you say, well, I'm going to start lifting weights, body says, well, if this clown's going to do this every day, we better get jacked for it. We better get jacked. Exactly. That's the GJ gene. GJ12. Get
jacked gene.
So a second ago you mentioned omega-6 fatty acids and how they are essential amino acids. You need them, but oftentimes people get way too much of them through industrialized seed oils and what have you. I don't know if epigenetically you want to answer this question and or just kind of in general, but what is the difference between getting omega-6s from cashews, as an example, versus soybean oil, like in regular mayonnaise?
So omega-6 is omega-6 at the end of the day. So it doesn't matter where they come from. So people can overdo cashews, thinking, well, cashews are, I won't do the soybean oil, but I'll do the cashews, and the next thing they've overdone that. So there's a certain amount of awareness that I try to teach. That's my job, is to teach, sort of give people enough knowledge that they can make choices. And whether they make a good choice or a bad choice, after that, it's up to them. It's like, if I make a bad choice, that's on me, pal, because, I know better than that. Yeah. But I'm not going to judge the choice, as good or bad. Yeah. They just are what they are.
So beyond, like, the pro-inflammatory response that you would get from omega-3s, like if you take soybean oil and you heat treat it and you bleach it and deodorize it and all these things, like, does it change the structure of the fatty acid and it makes it that much worse?
Well,
for you?
there's other stuff in there. There are other things in it. Certain. So the fats are missing certain endpoints, and will cause greater free radical damage because they're scavenging electrons. And there's a lot of issues with overly processed oils in general, but certainly the industrial seed oils that are high in omega-6. We shift over and we look at what are the alternatives. Well, they might be oils like avocado oil or olive oil or coconut oil or lard or ghee or butter. So there are a lot of great choices, and it's just understanding the differences between what the effect would be on the body. Now you can drive yourself crazy knowing almost too much about that and going, oh, geez, I better not eat this because it could do that, and I better stay away from nightshades because I heard about nightshades over here, and I better stay away from all beans because they have lectins in them, and lectins are going to kill me, and they're going to cause leaky gut, and no grains of any kind because there might be gluten in there, and you're left with nothing to eat. So there's I think the whole movement, which started out sort of identifying these potential offending culprits, is now kind of coming back and going, everybody's a little bit different, and there's an experimental one, and some people can actually eat gluten.
Yeah.
God bless them.
I know, right? Man, jealous.
Yeah. But back to so you can also, do the types of exercise that cause your muscles to grow in different ways. You actually upregulate certain systems that create greater fast twitch fiber, and you can recruit deeper and deeper by doing certain types of exercise. Mm-hmm. So 3 times 10 sets of weighted squats might have one effect, but doing 2 deadlifts of 80% max every 10 seconds for 8 minutes is gonna recruit fibers deeper and deeper and deeper, and they'll have 2 different. They'll be similar, but different enough effects that they're really specific to the types of work that you're doing. Mm-hmm. So, or if you're an endurance athlete, long, easy, slow stuff will have one effect, and then longer intervals will have another effect. Yeah. And you just sort of have to kind of figure out, okay, where do I want to put these pieces together, and how do I want to?
That's going to vary from person to person.
And it varies from person to person. So, like, having the knowledge and knowing how these things work, you still have to kind of have the intuitive ability to figure out how it works for you. And that's part of the beauty of all this stuff that we do in the gym, is the experimentation.
Yeah. Well, you have a very easy to understand model of movement priority. Like you have the pyramid.
Yes.
Yeah. The pyramid where at the bottom it's move
a lot, move as much as you can. Don't worry about burning calories.
Yeah, and then in the middle you have lift some heavy things.
Bingo.
And then at the top you have sprinting.
Sprint once a week.
Yeah, sprint once a week. Yeah. Is that typically where you would say people should start?
Yeah, what's like crazy is that when you because I took this from a totally ancestral model. You know, our ancestors, hundreds of thousands of years ago, millions of years ago, even as recently as
Grok,
20
yeah,
Grok,
yeah.
You know, just moved around a lot. They were like they didn't sit on a chair, they didn't lie down on a sofa for a nap. They didn't, you know, they moved all the time. And if they weren't moving, they were squatting in a full squat, which is still
carrying things. Yeah,
so they were climbing trees, they were building huts, they were carrying things. So they might lift a carcass. I mean, in a really heavy carcass, you know, back to camp, or carry babies, or lift stones, or get trees out of the way, or climb a tree. So all this stuff that we sort of find ways to mimic in the gym, those are actual ancestral patterns that we use. And so part of it is based on, like, how many different planes and ranges of motion can I do this in? Because we get, you know, the danger is you go to one gym, you do the same sets of machines,
right?
You know, and half the machines aren't even set up for your biomechanics. So you can actually screw yourself up doing that.
We actually just talked. Are you familiar with Katie Bowman?
Yeah, of course.
We just talked. We just had a podcast with her earlier this weekend. She talked exactly about that.
She's all about variety.
Variety. Yeah, and how if we exercise, it's really just some of the same just types of movements that we're doing.
Yeah. So we got move around a lot at a low level of activity. Lift heavy things a couple times a week, not too much. And then we have at the peak of it, sprint once in a while. The sprint once in a while isn't necessarily running, sprinting. I mean, it probably in an ancestral model it was, but now it could be on the elliptical or on the bike.
Or could you take that as like a Metcon or something like that?
And you could use a Metcon as an example of that.
Or like playing with like frisbee or things like that.
Yeah, there you go. No, exactly. So it's not limited to anything. But the point is, do a max effort for short bursts. Because the body expects that. I mean, what we're doing here is we're doing is we are giving the genes signals that they evolved to expect from us.
Yeah.
And so you're basically trying to manifest the body that your particular set of genes wants to be. And for most people, they've screwed it up in the first 10 or 15 or 20 or 50 years of their lives by eating the wrong foods, not moving enough, or moving too much the wrong way. I mean, I was guilty of the chronic cardio. Art Devaney's at the conference here, and my first 2 blog posts ever in the world were guest posts on Art Devaney's site, and one of them talked about chronic cardio and how there's this tendency in the endurance community to just think that more miles and more repetition is better.
More is better, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Always more is better. Come on.
So
when I find something I like, I do it every day.
That's it. No, it's but that's human. It's almost human nature to do that because we grew up in such scarcity for so long, or we evolved in such scarcity. So so the chronic cardio thing was a big issue. Where are we going with that? I don't know. I forget what track we're on.
Alex.
Well, how did that
the pyramid?
Yeah, how did that chronic cardio affect you? Like,
so the chronic cardio thing was the reason for my downfall as an endurance athlete. I was a marathoner, and I was getting better and better and better. But I knew where I was going with that. So I got my just years later, I got my DNA tested, and it said that I'm like 57% endurance athlete and 43% strength athlete. Well, I wouldn't have been a world-class runner at that level of variation. I had not enough endurance and too much strength. So that's why I weighed 10 pounds more than all the other runners that I ran against.
Yeah.
I still ran 2:18. I still finished 5th in the U.S. National Championship Marathon in 1980. So I feel good about the fact that I probably got the most out of my body that I was ever going to get.
Yeah.
But I look at that and I go, well.
What do you think if you did some interval stuff?
Oh, I did interval. I did intervals.
Okay.
But I'm talking about like I should have done parkour would have been my, that's the combination of endurance and strength.
Yeah.
Or obstacle, obstacle racing.
You're saying you should have picked a different sport.
Oh, yeah. I was probably better prepared for a different sport that didn't exist. Yeah,
right. Was it around back then?
Yeah, it wasn't. It was. Parkour wasn't.
You timed it wrong.
No, I know. Yeah. I've done that a lot in my life. But the obstacle racing thing right now would have really appealed to me because I was a gymnast before I was a runner, and so I had that kind of combination. And I had I was actually a pole vaulter for a little while, but at some point when you're a pole vaulter, your lack of speed shuts you down. You have to be fast as a pole vaulter.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I guess the point is that if you're really focused on being a certain type of athlete, it is instructive to know where your potential is.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that you can get through self-experimentation. A lot of kids know, how good they're going to be at soccer or baseball or football, through a couple of years of doing whatever, Little League or Pop Warner or AYSO. But, and eventually you go, well, I'm destined not to be a pro athlete, so I'll just pivot and move on to something else, right?
But this pyramid, I feel like it's more about, just general. Is it more for general health, or is it for performance? Or
yeah. So it's definitely for general health. It's like the more that time goes by and the more I look at the studies, the more I realize that if you follow that pyramid, that's the best way to approach longevity. Yeah. Move around a lot, lift a couple times a week. Again, twice a week is enough to lift for longevity. Sprint once a week, and I'm talking about like 6 to 8 repetitions of 30 to 40 seconds done. Warm up, 2 minutes in between, but done.
That seems to be one of the first things that goes away as people get a little bit older. They stop moving full speed. They stop running sprints. They stop jumping. Stop doing agility training. And we were talking to John Durant earlier today, and it seems that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you have that kind of automatically incorporated into your week by playing ultimate frisbee.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, but the main reason I play is fun.
Sure.
Dude, I spent most of my life in 200 endurance contests in my life, from the mile, 2 mile, 5K, 10K, marathon, triathlon, all that stuff. There was never a point between the time the gun went off until the time across the finish line that I could truly say, oh, man, this is fun. And that's a sad commentary. When you're an endurance athlete, you're just managing pain. And the best you can say is, I'm in the zone and I don't feel much. Or the pace is slacked off. Oh, good, I got a little bit of respite. But there are so many, in a marathon in particular, even more so sometimes in an Ironman, there are times when you hit a crisis. And if you feel like the wheels are going to come off, if you don't pick up the pace and you drop the pace, you're off the back.
Yeah.
So the only choice when you feel like shit is to
go harder.
Is to pick up the pace and hope that shakes things up. And you can only allow yourself 2 or 3 of those crises in a race, and then it's like, okay, that wasn't working.
Yeah.
So Ultimate's fun.
Yeah.
I'll play 2 hours of Ultimate. It's the hardest workout I'll have all week. And at no point am I going, oh, when's it going to be over? It's like, oh, shit, it's going to be over in 20 minutes.
The sun's going down. I got to go home.
No. But, or, I love paddling. I think stand-up paddling is one of the greatest exercises ever. When you do it right. And I don't dick around, and I'm going, 3 miles there, and I'm straight line as possible, and I'm digging deep. And
you ever had any encounters with the great whites lately?
No, but there's been some spotted off.
I know.
Off of Long Beach, which is about 40 miles south of me. But I was like 3/4 of a mile off the coast the other day, and 2 50-foot whales with babies. Yeah,
that was beautiful.
Wow. That was awesome. Yeah,
it's
it's really cool. So, but anyway, but paddling, same thing. It's like I got an hour and 20 minutes to get a paddle in, and I'm never thinking when's it going to be over. I'm thinking, oh shit, I got to get back and make a call.
Yeah.
So that's a big difference to me is enjoying the movement, enjoying the fun. So now the only reason I go to the gym is to sort of get enough of a workout that I can prevent injury when I'm playing.
Yeah.
That
seems like a common theme.
I'm finding the same thing with myself. Is going from gym rat to how does the gym supplement the lifestyle I want to live.
Yeah.
And once somebody's been competing and training, I mean, I was training for 20 years, and then I go, oh, I want to have fun.
Yeah.
And it seems like that's the only way to have longevity. Is everyone I talk to who is in awesome shape and who has been training for a long time, they end up having to incorporate more play.
Have to.
And I think a lot more people who never they don't really get into a lot of physical activity. It's because they forgot how to play.
Yeah.
It's like there's
or they never knew.
Or they never knew. Yeah.
And some people feel like if they're playing, then they're not actually working out. Like they're wasting the time that they could have to work out.
But that's a classic case of a specific athlete who's training in one, for one sport, and then they play another sport and they feel like it's wasted time or it's cutting into their, their time. I mean, when I was a marathoner, I didn't ski because I was afraid I was going to hurt my knee.
Yeah.
So I missed out on skiing and snowboarding for 15 years.
Oh yeah, there's definitely plenty of activities that all athletes just have to opt out of.
They opt out of, and then when my kids were finally younger. My daughter was like 13, my son was 10. We took up snowboarding as a family. Like, oh, geez, I've been missing out on some of the most fun ever. And then we wound up doing trips around the country, and our big trip every year was our snowboard trip. Nice. So I'm looking at ways to have more fun while I'm moving, and that's really, as you say, that's the way it ought to be. So the gym time, probably necessary just to get in there and do a couple of. I do mostly body weight stuff, so it's push-ups, pull-ups, dips, squats, lunges,
which you can
do
anywhere. You don't have to go to a gym.
Correct. I mean, I got a rubber band with handles on it. What do you call those things? Stretch cord, I guess. And I can get such a pump and such great just from doing some little put it around my feet and go up like this. And, so it's crazy how people spend $1 million building a gym with all this crazy equipment, and
there's a gym all around you.
And there's a gym all around you. Yeah.
Have you ever been downhill mountain biking, like at a ski resort where you take the chairlift up and you ride it down?
So there's a famous E.E. Cummings poem called "Song of Olaf." It's about a conscientious objector, but the famous line there is there is some shit I will not eat. And that's how I feel about downhill mountain biking.
It's like not doing it.
It's like I had to reassess the risk-reward ratio of a lot of things.
Sure.
And, like I was a great inline skater for a while. In my 40s, I was one of the best inline skaters in Los Angeles. And I never really raced, but all the guys that did race would draft me for 30 miles while I pulled them, and then they'd sprint around me. But I was a very strong skater, and then I got badly injured, tore a hamstring, off the insertion, tripping on skates and then doing a split, and so I had to reassess where I was, and I was in my late 40s at the time, and I just said, you know what, I don't want to do that again.
Yeah.
So that's going to compromise the rest of my ability to have fun doing other stuff. So I've pulled some of the things out. I probably shouldn't be playing Ultimate with 20-somethings, but it's so much fun that I do, and I have a blast doing it. And we have guys we have 8-year-old kids who learn how to play with us and have become really good enough to go to college and play at a college level. Then we have 40 and 50-year-old guys who say it's the most fun they have all week. They can't wait till Sunday at 9:30 to play Ultimate and we've been doing it for 13 years. So it's a great game. I mean, if I had to prescribe one opportunity for every school that has cut their PE program because they don't have the facilities, if you got a grass yard and you got a $9 Frisbee, you got the greatest learning experience and fitness experience for any young kid possible. It teaches teamwork. It teaches hand-eye coordination. It teaches sprint skills and movement and lateral agility drills and jumping. Yep. It teaches sportsmanship. It teaches hand-eye coordination with judging the flight of a disc.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you could turn it into a physics course. It's crazy. And it's such a great sport.
Yeah.
And I think it's the perfect sport.
Yeah. Doug actually played in the Australian National Championships.
Oh, yeah?
That's true.
Yeah. All right.
He's not even Australian.
My little brother has played in that many times. So I actually, when I was living in Australia, they just kind of snuck me on the team. So I've actually only played in the Australian National Championship.
Wow, yes.
I never played any game other than that.
Wow, that's crazy, man.
It was really fun. My whole job, because I wasn't like a handler when I'm actually throwing.
Just catch it.
Barely at all.
Just catch it.
That's right. Just
get open and catch it, baby.
Run to the end zone. Score the touchdown, which of course is not called that, but that was my job.
Yeah.
What are some other kind of philosophies that you live by in terms of other than nutrition or movement?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm big on sleep. I try to get 8 hours a night, and I think it's one of the most overlooked aspects of health and recovery. So if you're an athlete, a lot of athletes, they know they need sleep because they can feel it, but a lot of people are also of the mindset that it's 11:30 and the gang's going out for beers. I'm going to miss out on something. Yeah. So it's FOMO, right? So there's a huge fear of missing out for people, and then they it's sort of I'll sleep when I'm dead, and I'm a big fan of sleep.
I think a lot of people are getting hip to that.
Yeah.
It's becoming a much bigger conversation because people are just crashing.
You talk about things that affect gene expression. I mean, sleep is one of those big things.
And getting sleep doesn't have the stigma that it used to. It's like you tell people you get 8 or 9 hours of sleep, and
it's like, you lazy ass.
Yeah, you're a slacker. What's wrong with you, pal?
Sleep when you're dead. Like if I'm taking a nap and like someone calls my phone, I'm just like, hello?
Yeah.
It's like, is this a good time?
Absolutely.
I was working.
Absolutely. No, I know that one, and I'm pretty good at that too. Yeah, and then being out in nature and sun exposure. I mean, we don't get enough sun. It's just that's pure and simply one of the biggest issues, particularly people living in the northern parts of the United States.
Yeah.
We just don't get enough sun, and when we do get sun, we get too much of it because we haven't gotten exposed to it on a regular basis. So you sort of what we call photo period and monitoring the amount of sunlight you get on a daily basis. And sometimes it gets pretty crazy. Like if you wear sunglasses, you don't get the same effect of the sun exposure as if you wear.
That's something I've learned recently.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to get myself. Not trying. I have been getting myself off the sunglasses.
Yeah.
How does that work?
It's hard to be out there in the sun though, and
it
with the blue eyes and the fair skin.
Yeah. But I keep sunglasses in my truck.
Yeah.
I only use them if I feel like by not having them, I'm going to be a danger. I'm like driving into the horizon and the sun's right there. I'm throwing them on.
I'm not familiar. How does that?
Just there's
how does
something.
that work?
There's some thing in the eyes where the eyes have to. The sunlight has to hit the back of the eyes. Not direct sunlight.
Right.
And there's a biochemical response to that.
Yeah, you have rods and cones in the back of your eye. Yeah.
So rods and cones and shit.
Yeah.
That's basically.
I think I've heard of the eye before.
The fovea.
That's how I describe it. But for like being out on the water, there's a lot of reflection and stuff like that. So I've been teaching myself to not wear sunglasses when I'm out there.
Seems like everything that we've invented as a human race
sets us back.
Yeah. It's like we're not supposed to live. Like when you were talking earlier about like gene expression, it's like I kind of thought in my mind, I was like, you're supposed to live the way you're supposed to live, like the way you were designed to live by nature, and that's not wearing sunglasses or things like that.
Yeah. I mean, the closest, like I got, the 5-fingered shoes on, and I'm a big fan of the, there you go. I'm a big fan of these. I've worn nothing but these for 10 years. No shoes of any kind.
Really?
And the good news is my feet are really strong, so I can sprint with these on, and I could step in chuck holes and not twist an ankle, which I definitely would have done if I'd had cleats that raised me this far off the ground. And then when I switched to not just the leverage, but the fact that the small muscles of my feet hadn't trained for it.
Yeah.
Right. I feel I'll do long hikes in them. I mean, I pretty much do everything in them. But I also have good looking. I have like 25 pair of these. So I've like when these were new,
Holy
they
shit.
were really pretty hip looking shoes, and I could wear a 3-piece suit with them. And if I didn't want
suede going on over here.
I'm telling you, if I didn't want you to look at my feet, you wouldn't. So you wouldn't go, oh, that crazy guy with gorilla feet or whatever.
I didn't even notice.
Yeah.
You pointed
There
it
you
out.
go. See.
Yeah.
So point taken. But weddings and funerals, and I don't. I've worn so like for instance, I kind of lied because I've worn shoes twice, and in those 2 times, my feet were so screwed up from being cramped, and it's weird how. It's scary how you think that if that's what happens when I put shoes on.
Oh, yeah.
What must be going on
yeah.
with my feet every time I wear shoes. So I'm back to, looking for other shoe companies and other things that would most closely approximate what my feet want to do, what they expect.
Yeah. Let's take a break real quick. When we come back, I want to talk about athletes and ketosis.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, welcome back to Technique Quad. We are here today at Deuce Gym. Our buddy Logan over there let us come film in this awesome outdoor environment. We're talking with Corey Gregory, the president of Muscle Farm, and he's going to share with us the different deadlift variations that he's been using in his training to get his deadlift up to 575 pounds. All right, so like I said, Corey has been squatting heavy every single day for almost 500 days in a row, and you're on day 477?
70.
470.
30 days to go.
He's got about a month left.
Yep.
And along with squatting heavy every single day, he deadlifts heavy twice a week. And so we actually did another technique quad where we showed all the different squatting variations that Corey incorporates into his training. That way he's not doing the exact same squat every single day. And with this episode, we're going to do where we're showing all the deadlift variations that he incorporates into his training twice a week. Okay? So Corey, what are the different variations that you like to do when deadlifting?
So the big thing about when I started the squat every day is that my conventional was pretty weak. And so weak meaning like just over 400 pounds. And what I want to do is really work on my conventional. One thing I ran into and we talked about last time is pulling in Olympic shoes. So I pulled in Olympic shoes. That's one of my variations with a close stance. You can go a no belt or a belted max, which does make quite a big difference in deadlift. You can go a flat soled shoe for a sumo deadlift, which I compete that way. I pulled 575 at 198. And you can also pull off blocks or the opposite of standing on a plate at a deficit to create more leg drive. And so really, I might be only pulling 5 or 6 singles to a max effort twice a week. So, and sometimes I go through bands, sometimes I use chains, and really there's almost as many variations of deadlift as there is to the squat. So you have no reason to be bored, and if you continually can beat your old maxes, you're just gonna keep getting stronger, which has happened to me. It's been great.
All right, so you said you could change your footwear, you could change your stance, how wide your feet are. You said you could add chains or bands.
Belt or no belt.
Belts or no belts. So we got all kinds of options. We're going to run through a few of those right now just so people can see exactly what those options look like.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right, so here's one of Corey's favorite variations. He's doing a wide stance sumo. In regular shoes, no belt. Beautiful.
On to deficits.
All right, or he could also do a close stance deficit pull where he's standing on a 25-pound plate. This is more of a conventional pull, obviously, as opposed to a sumo like we just saw. Beautiful. All right, another variation, he could do the opposite. Instead of standing on a plate, he could actually elevate the bar and do kind of a rack pull or just pulling from blocks. And again, this time he happens to be wearing weightlifting shoes, no belts. Again, you can change the footwear or add a belt. All right, or another way you can do it, and Chris is going to steal Corey's spotlight here, is to add a bunch of chain to the middle of the bar. That way you get that accommodating resistance and it gets heavier as you pull all the way to the top. Go. Thanks, dude. Another variation, again, he can have his Olympic shoes on, just regular pull, conventional from the floor. This time he's wearing a belt. So a subtle variation just by having a belt.
You're so varied, bro.
Another variation, if you have a platform that has the ability to strap bands down to it, you can take some reds and double them up to get a heavy band pull. And those bands don't look like much, but they're kicking hard at the top.
Oh, they're kicking hard at the top.
All right, one more variation you can do is you can hang bands from above, doing a reverse band pull where the band's giving you some tension at the bottom, and then as he picks it up, more and more of the weight on the bar ends up in his hands because the band tension isn't helping him out anymore. So in this case, he's pulling sumo with reverse bands, regular shoes, no belt. Beautiful. All right, so we have all these different variations. We got reverse bands, we got bands, we got our stance width for whether you're doing sumos or regular pulls. You don't have to even have the same stance for each and every sumo you do. You can be super wide on one and then bring your feet in 6 inches and then 6 inches more, and it can still be a sumo with just a subtle variation. We have a belt, no belt. We had rack pulls versus deficit pulls.
Yep.
And then all the different combinations therein, you could be doing a rack pull with reverse band with weightlifting shoes on and no belt. Once you piece all those things together, you have hundreds of different variations that you could possibly do as far as your deadlift options. So you never have to do the same deadlift over and over and over again. And Corey certainly doesn't, and he's had awesome results because of that, deadlifting close to 600 pounds now.
Yeah, 575.
I'd imagine you're chasing that 600.
Oh, I'm gonna pull triple body weight, it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, not many people do, so that's pretty cool. So if you would like more videos like this, you can always go to barbellshrugged.com, click on the Technique WOD tab at the top of the page, and we have more videos like this in the library. If you want to follow Corey, you can follow him on Instagram at MuscleFarmPrez.
Yep.
Appreciate you being on the show, man.
Absolutely, thanks, brother.
Join the conversation every week after the episode over at barbellshrugged.com. This is also where you'll find new episodes of Barbell Shrugged, Technique WOD, Nuggets and Pearls, Barbell Business, Get Change, plus new articles every day on our daily blog, written by us, guests of the show, and some of the biggest names in strength and conditioning. So, go there and leave a comment now. Oh my gosh, wow, that's so cool. Yay, that's so awesome.
Did you like this video? If so, subscribe to our channel and share this with your friends.
And if you want even more free, awesome resources to help you reach your fitness goals, plus some updates that we only share over email, head over to barbellshrugged.com and sign up for the newsletter.
All right, we're back with Mark Sisson. Doug, you had a question you were wanting to kick off before we got into the ketogenic.
Yeah. So humans tend to be very, very social creatures. Put somebody in solitary confinement and they just socially, psychologically, emotionally kind of just fall apart. Physically, I feel like that probably holds true as well. If you have no physical touch in your life, biochemically, maybe epigenetically, like there are changes that are happening hormonally, like you just aren't the same. So both sexually and non-sexually, like I think physical contact and physical touch is a really good thing. An example, like when I go to jiu-jitsu and I'm wrestling with other human beings, primarily men, in of course a non-sexual way, like I feel just more normal and just better day to day, even compared to like if I spent 5 days doing jiu-jitsu versus 5 days of working out. They're both physical activities. I'm burning calories. I'm using my muscles. I'm getting full range of motion, et cetera, et cetera. But there's something about the human contact that I think is very good for me emotionally and psychologically.
I feel like Doug needs a hug.
Yeah, I'm a very physical person. I was just waiting for it. That's right. So, do you have any thoughts on that?
I think you just said it. I think everything you just said, I agree with 100%. That we need contact and touch, and we need one of the things that's happening in our world now with all of this digital involvement and not even having eye contact with people. It affects us. It affects us chemically, biochemically, whether it's hormones, whether it's neurotransmitters, could be pheromones, there's a lot of interplay here, but humans are very social animals as you have described. And I think the good news is I think we're getting back to that. I think there's a recognition of that. I hope we get back to that, because like one of the things I see that could be a pivotal point in human evolution is virtual porn. 3D porn.
Yep.
I mean, it's like Woody Allen first talked about it in Sleeper like 40 years ago, but that sort of non-human experience that's so human in terms of its internal nature could be devastating to relationships and human relationships. So I'm just sort of waiting to see what what happens as a result of that.
Have you had the virtual reality porn experience?
I have not.
I have.
And
it was so real in some ways and so unreal in others that it was a brand new experience. I've watched porn before, for sure. And
shocker.
I'm sitting there. I had the goggles on and I had somebody touching me.
Yeah.
And it still was just the experience was, I got out of it and I was like, I got to find a real person to touch.
Right.
It was really weird. My wife, on the other hand, loved it.
Yeah.
So
that's
I don't
interesting.
know.
Yeah. But so that was a beta
She
test.
loved you doing
Beta
it. She was like, "Yeah, just go do that. Leave me alone."
that was a beta.
That's perfect for you.
That was a beta test. It's going to get much
she
better.
loved it.
Yeah. When it becomes a master beta test, then it will be. Yeah.
She actually liked being a guy. Having that experience.
That's
open up a
whole other thing.
Whole other realm, a whole different show, and I'm not going to go there. That's right. Yeah. Anyway, but back to the concept of connection. I mean, you back off and you say, well, there's touch and there's eye contact and there's listening and the ability to listen and hear someone, and communication and all of these, they all sort of are different aspects of connection.
Yeah.
And that's, I wrote a book called Primal Connection, which some people say is my best book, and it sold about 7 copies. So,
so that's usually how it goes.
Yeah,
right?
We'll link it. We'll link it.
Yeah.
Get some,
I actually didn't know about that book. I'm really curious to read it now.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I don't know how I missed that one.
And I totally agree. I totally agree with you that it's going in that direction of people are seeking out more connection.
Yep.
Because we live in this world everything's through social media and on the internet, but
we think we're connected.
Yeah, we think we're connected, but people are actually really searching for that personal touch. Yeah.
Well, they have the chill zone downstairs, which when I looked in there, have you been in the chill zone?
No.
It looks a lot like a cuddle puddle type situation.
Cool.
You gonna get in on that?
I will now.
Do you know what a cuddle puddle is?
He lives in Malibu. He knows what a cuddle puddle is.
What's a cuddle puddle? I got a picture of what it is. Tell me what a cuddle puddle is.
It's like a naked dog pile.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
basically.
Yeah.
It's a good time.
My wife wouldn't like that.
So ketosis. People going in the ketogenic diets
Yeah.
it's exploding right now.
Yes.
You have a
Huge.
book on it.
Yeah.
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 I've just finished writing a book. It will be out in October.
Oh.
But,
What's the book called?
The Keto Reset Diet.
Okay.
So the concept of this book is how to use ketosis to reset your metabolism, to become better at burning fat, to build the metabolic machinery that not only burns fat, but gives you the freedom to skip a meal and not worry about it, the power to be able to create additional fuel from your own body. It's like a superpower, because ketones are like this undiscovered fuel for most people, because most people go through their lives never really being able to access that type of fuel. They'll burn a lot of glucose, a little bit of fat, maybe some protein if they're so deeply into the sugar burning hole that when they run out of fuel, they start to tear down muscle tissue. Mm-hmm. And that was the sort of the mantra of the fitness and bodybuilding from the 60s through the early 2000s.
Yeah, don't go catabolic.
Don't go catabolic, which means don't go more than a few hours
without eating. Right.
So 6 meals a day. And so Tupperware went to $1 billion company because everybody had to carry their little meals around with them. And
I was doing it.
You know, everyone was doing it.
Carbs.
Yeah, so you had this fear that you'd go catabolic because your body start to consume its muscle tissue. Well, that was always based on this idea that if you're not good at burning fat, and if you haven't built the metabolic machinery to burn fat, your body only knows how to burn glucose. Now, it's either stored in your muscles or it's glycogen in your liver.
Yeah.
Or it's from the food you just ate or the gel pack you're drinking right now. But the danger is that when you run out of that fuel, which you will do pretty quickly because the body can't store much of it at all, is that the brain, which needs glucose, if you haven't trained for it.
It's about, 25% of the glucose in a day?
Yeah.
Is usually used by the brain.
Yeah,
is that true?
Yeah, the brain consumes 25% of the energy of the human body in a day.
Yeah. And preferred fuel is glucose.
And the brain doesn't burn fat. So so people who are sugar burners are not only using their muscles to burn sugar and glucose, glycogen, but the brain is heavily involved in consuming some of that glucose. And the brain is what tells you you're tired. So the old theory was, if I'm doing a race and I hit the wall, it's because my muscles are running out of glycogen and I've lost my glycogen storage. Well, in fact, now we know that your muscles still hold on to a lot of glycogen. There's a set point, and the muscles won't go below that. It's the brain that says, "Hey, we're in a danger, sirens going off." The brain says, "Pull over, take a nap."
And I've actually heard about athletes pushing that have a mental fortitude can just
absolutely
run through that and then start hitting that digging into more.
And they do, and that's one of the hallmarks of the older athletic model, which was how willing are you to hurt. Right. So Steve Prefontaine, who was probably one of the greatest runners the country ever had, he was a very talented athlete, but there were much more talented athletes worldwide around him in distance running. And he would get on the line and go, "I know you're better trained than I am, and you may have a higher VO2 max. I'm willing to kill myself in this race. Is that okay with you?" And he would.
That would psych anybody out. I feel like that.
Alberto Salazar was probably one of the greatest. Another great runner. Salazar, when he was a teenager, passed out in the Falmouth 10K and read his last rites. His core temperature was like 107 because he drove himself. He just had that ability to dig deeper and deeper. I have contemporaries of mine from the days of triathlon, Ironman guys, who would get into the zone so deeply that today, 30 years later, they'll go, "You know what? I feel pretty strongly I left part of my life out on the course there."
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm
sure.
I think I gave up a couple of years on the back end of my life doing what I did. So, that's cool that you can override that stuff and you can get into that Zen state. But when you become good at burning fat, when you become fat adapted,
keto adapted,
and you automatically become keto adapted, when you cut the carbs out of your diet or cut them down enough that your body says, "I get the message." The message is, the signaling is, genes turn on that build more of the enzymes that burn fat. we upregulate the production of mitochondria, so we can put more fat through the mitochondria, so there are more mitochondria. All the mitochondria have their own DNA, mitochondrial DNA. That gets upregulated, so the mitochondria can become more efficient in and of themselves. So now you have more mitochondria, more efficient mitochondria, and you can put more fat through the system. So how that's manifesting itself in today's endurance athletes is there's guys that can run 6-minute miles and get 92, 93% of their energy from fat. Mm-hmm. And not tap into those glycogen reserves, and not have to drink those nasty gel packs.
Right.
Which
you're talking specifically about endurance
I'm
athletes.
talking about endurance athletes for right now. Yep. So just to give you the difference between what it was in the old days where you had to be drinking the carbohydrate drinks all during the race.
I sucked down some goo in my day.
It makes sense because your body's reserve of fat is way higher than your body's reserve of glycogen or carbohydrate.
I mean, I'm pretty low body fat these days, and I probably got enough fat on me to walk 300 miles.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's how the body was designed. That's how we evolved. And again, we've looked at evolution. So why would we evolve a system that allowed us to store this much extra fuel without mechanisms to burn it? Mm-hmm. So one of the things that happens in ketosis is you go deeply into that low-carb strategy where you cut carbs so much that the body starts to build that metabolic machinery, and all of a sudden the liver starts to say, okay, we're going to take some fat and we're going to slice it differently, and we're going to create these ketone molecules, and the ketones can go, and the brain burns the ketones better than it burns glucose, and without a lot of the oxidative damage that glucose sometimes causes. So, and the muscles love ketones, and cardiac muscle thrives on ketones. So ketones are almost a preferred fuel for in the right conditions, but you have to sort of
get to that point.
You have to train the body. It
takes a little while.
It takes a while, and so it takes a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
to do that, and I'd say you get 80% there in a couple of weeks, and then maybe the next 10% might take a couple of months, and the last 10%, if you really wanted to be a world-class keto athlete, might take another 6 months. So
you mean this shit takes time?
Yeah.
But
why I say that is you'll get a lot of the benefits, the endurance benefits at lower levels, sub-threshold levels of endurance. They're very quick, and so we have people who can say hold 275 watts on a bike for 2 hours, and once they become keto adapted, they can hold that for 20 hours. Yeah. That's a huge difference.
Yeah.
Now, if you slide the wattage up a little bit and you start to go to 300 or 350 watts, so now 20 minutes becomes 2 hours. Well, that's significant in a race situation. But one of the things that does happen is early on there's a loss of top end power. So you can't crank 1,400 watts for 10 seconds, right?
Right. Okay.
So you lose that top end, but that's what you get over time. You get that top end back over time, but you sort of lose that.
How long does it take to get that top end back? Because that's something I've
noticed.
Like a
year.
Okay,
that's where the year is.
You have to be willing to do
take
it
so
for a
far.
year.
So how many competitive elite athletes are willing to take a year on the chance that maybe this will work? So we haven't really found that yet. Where we do find it is in some of the sports like ultra endurance running, where all the top guys now, the guys who are setting records, they're all keto, they're all low carb, they're all training in ways that were inconceivable, 4 years ago, 5 years ago.
You're also having to go lower protein with this. As well.
Because protein. So what turns off ketosis? So ketosis is your body manufacturing ketones that can be used as fuel. Ketosis is driven in a low carbohydrate state, which of necessity means it's a low glucose state. Yeah. So and it's a low insulin state. So when you have low glucose, you have low insulin. So increasing insulin shuts off ketosis. That's why you don't get ketoacidosis as a non-diabetic when you go into ketosis. There's an automatic regulation here of creating enough glucose hepatically to raise insulin to cut off ketosis. So when you are training in that ketosis stage, and you're creating these ketone bodies, you're in a position where you're going to be able to do more work for the same amount of well, you burn more fat, create more ketones, and unburden your body of needing to take in glucose.
Yeah.
So over time, that's a good thing. But protein, which can become
glucose
converted to glucose by the liver in excess, and is almost sometimes by itself, protein is insulinogenic. So you might take like whey protein isolate can be insulinogenic, can cause insulin. So you might, if you have too much protein, it shuts off.
Yeah.
That it creates.
So I think for a lot of athletes, they might be scared of the ketogenic diet because now I'm not going to get this anabolic. Effect from the I have to cut my protein out now.
So, and that was the last piece of the puzzle to fall into place for me.
Gotcha.
So, because I work damn hard for my muscle mass, right? And I'm a skinny guy. I weigh more than I should. I work hard to keep the muscle mass. So that fear of, if I cut protein, what's going to happen? Well, what happens is the way ketosis works, and it's beautiful, is ketone bodies are protein sparing.
Protein sparing.
Yeah. Beta hydroxybutyrate, which is one of the ketone bodies, literally it's an epigenetic signaling device that causes protein to be spared in the body and recycled in a different pathway. So you don't lose protein, you don't piss it out, you just recycle it. So I've lost 6 pounds on this. I've been in straight ketosis for the last say 9 weeks, and I've lost 6 pounds. And I didn't think I had 6 pounds to lose of body fat, but I have. And I'm not a big guy, but people go to the gym and they go, "Dude, you're putting on mass." I go, "No, I'm actually losing mass, but you're seeing more striations, you're seeing more, more of the effect of that, and it's the protein sparing effect. It's like scary how sparing when you're deep in ketosis, how sparing of protein and muscle that can be."
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, you looked at endurance athletes, but what about strength athletes? Is ketone viable?
So there's a lot of strength athletes I think are looking at ketosis as a method of training and cyclic ketosis. So particularly strength athletes that have weight classes that are in divisions where they have to, whether it's weightlifting or MMA or wrestling or whatever. It's a great tool to use to shrink down your fat stores to as low as they can go and maintain muscle mass. Because a lot of again, with wrestling and boxing in the old days, they'd put on the rubber suit and they'd run and they'd spit.
Yeah.
And all that.
I've done
all it. That. Yeah. and all that's doing is you're burning a little bit of fat, but you're mostly
water weight. Yeah.
It's water weight.
Yeah.
And then you're losing glycogen, which is a false sort of sense of weight loss.
Yeah.
You're not actually burning off fat. So
right.
if in your and it all goes back to high school coaches who say, your normal weight is 145. You're going to wrestle 107. It's like, or whatever. I don't know what
Ask
the weight
Doug
classes
about
are.
his weight cut.
Yeah.
Weight cuts.
Yeah.
Well, we both.
That.
He's made the biggest swings out of all of us.
Yeah.
For sure.
So, but that's like a sadistic way to treat a teenager, by the way.
Now you said cyclical keto.
Yeah. So
what does that mean?
It just means you go in for a couple of days, couple of weeks, and you come back out.
Okay, so you would go into keto.
You go into ketosis.
Okay.
Yeah, and stay in ketosis for as long as feels comfortable. And then come back out. And when I say come back out, don't go eating
Ben and Jerry's.
Right. Just slowly add some carbs back in.
Slowly add some carbs back in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then
I might have to try that.
I don't know if you guys have ever used if you've ever used creatine.
Yeah.
But, creatine's a powerful supplement for weightlifters to use, and so but after 6 weeks, the effects stop. So so creatine's best used when you do 6 weeks on and 2 months off, right? Because 6 weeks on, you'll ratchet up to a plateau, but you'll be at a new plateau, and then you hold that plateau for another couple of months, and then you just reintroduce the creatine. I mean, it's kind of cool how you can use some of these devices.
So we're looking at, you asked about strength athletes, and we have endurance athletes.
Yeah.
So we have an athlete that's primarily in one energy system, and what about this energy system in the middle, the glycolytic?
That's where most CrossFitters, a lot of CrossFitters.
Yeah, we look
live.
at the sport of CrossFit, and I'm going as hard as I possibly can for 10 minutes.
Well, you're not going to sacrifice your glycolytic systems because they're always there. That basically a lot of that takes place outside the mitochondria. But what you'll find is that so one of the concerns is, well, wait a minute, if I'm going to do 2 days on, 1 day off, that second day is going to be a bear because I won't be able to refill my glycogen stores
Yeah.
to do the glycolytic work.
Right.
So that's a consideration, and you might say, okay, well then I'm going to be I'm going to be in ketosis the day I do my first Metcon, and that night I'm going to top off with some sweet potato, 100 grams or something like that of sweet potato, or 100 grams worth of carbs from sweet potato. So the next day you get up and you've pretty much topped off your glycogen stores, and you go do what you're going to do, and as soon as the workout's over, you're back into ketosis. There's been some talk back and forth in the community about, well, once you get out of ketosis,
that's what I was going to ask you. Yeah, is that
it takes you, it takes 3 days to get back, and that's not been my experience.
Okay.
I mean, I play around with carbing up one night, not a lot, but inappropriately with some chocolate thing here or there, and clearly would be out of ketosis. Wake up the next morning, do a fasted work. Don't eat until my workout.
Yeah.
Do a fasted workout, and then don't eat till 1 o'clock, which is normally what I do anyway. Test my ketones at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm 1.7, 1.8. It's fine. So, I think we develop the skill over time, and the more you go in and out, and the more you play around with it. Like every time every week or two you spend in ketosis, I think it benefits you further on down the road, whether you never go there again.
Have you built that machinery?
Yeah, you built that machinery.
Okay.
Unless you completely screw it up by doing
eating pizza, like a whole pizza,
right? Or eating
one
1,000.
time.
Yeah. Not just one time, but no, one time isn't going to do it. But 3 weeks is going to do it.
Okay.
So the body likes to get sort of a sense of what's happening in real time. That's the neurotransmitters and the hormones. And then in the long term, the body finally upregulates and says, you know what,
that's gene expression.
That's gene expression. Yeah. So over time, once you've built the metabolic machinery, you won't lose it unless the body. This goes back to the original premise that we had about atrophy and stuff like that. If the body says, well, I don't need this fat burning mechanism anymore because we got so much glucose coming in, we can just fire it off whenever we want. Then there's a downregulation. There's an atrophy of those systems. Now it's tough to lose mitochondria. It's a little bit tougher than muscle size or strength, which diminishes pretty quickly. But so I'm just suggesting that this becomes a tool that you can use, a strategy in your life. It's an anti-aging strategy. It's a fat-burning strategy. It's an energy strategy for going through the day. I mean, it's fantastic to be able to wake up in the morning and go, oh, geez, it's 4 o'clock. I haven't eaten yet. Friend Todd White from Dry Farm Wines. He's been in ketosis for 3.5 years. I don't know if you met Todd.
Yeah, I have actually.
Okay, yeah.
I've drank the wine.
I drank the wine. I drank the Kool-Aid.
That's right.
But he tells me, he says, dude, some days it's like the end of the day and I have to be mindful of my eating. And I go, does that mean you tend to overeat? He says, no, I tend to not eat enough because I'm not that hungry.
Yeah.
And I have all the energy I need.
Yeah.
So for the general population, one of the great things about ketosis is it's appetite mitigating. It suppresses appetite. And appetite's what is the biggest issue for most people who are trying to adjust their diet and lifestyle.
Hey, the body doesn't like change, so it's going to tell you, like, hey, feed me.
And the brain's always going to say feed me, and there's always going to be this tendency if you're sugar dependent to eat again and again because insulin goes up and it goes down, and hormones, ghrelin goes up, leptin goes down, and all of these interplays. We wind up living our lives from one meal to the next. It's like, okay, lunch was awesome. When's dinner? It's like
sounds like me on a cut.
but it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
And how freeing is it to have an experience where for most of your life you're not only not hungry, you're like and here's how like you're not hungry. You don't get sick because your immune system's boosted. You have all the energy you want. You're keeping muscle mass. Like that's an awesome, like that's magical, right?
Yeah.
But it all revolves around not being hungry because the other three things, they fall away if you're hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard people talk about cycling on and off. How long does somebody want to stay on? You're talking about somebody who's been doing it for 4 years.
Yeah.
And then I've heard people go on it for a few months and they come back out.
Yeah.
What's
there's no
standard.
There's no standard. No. We're young enough in the ketogenic age that we don't have enough data points. Like somebody said, well, should I be in ketosis for the rest of my life? I don't know. Maybe not. Mm-hmm. But so far, a lot of people have had some great success with it, particularly kids who have epilepsy and seizure and brain damage. That's where the initial studies are done that are just overwhelmingly in support of what's going on with brain metabolism and these ketone bodies.
Yeah. Do you use testing strips to test if you're in ketosis?
Yeah, once in a while. Now I know. So, but I mean, I'll mostly when I'm playing around with stuff. Like if somebody will send me a new ketone supplement, and I'll
like an exogenous ketone,
an exogenous ketone, and I'll brag. Well, you'll be at 6.0 in an hour and a half. And I go, well, I'll be the judge of that, and I'll see. And but I stopped testing regularly. First of all, because those bastards cost
they're
about
expensive.
$5 a strip.
They're really expensive.
Okay.
So that's the main reason. But and it only works to test your blood ketones. The breath stuff. Maybe I don't know the breath stuff, but the P strips is like, all right, because a lot of stuff happens there where you're an early adopter and you pee out and it's a purple strip that says you're producing ketones. Well, you're producing them, but you're pissing them out. You're not using them. You haven't built the metabolic machinery.
Gotcha.
And then when you get really good at using them, and I feel like I am, the body, again, it's very efficient. It only makes what it needs.
Right.
And if my body's used to making enough ketones to keep me energetic and thinking clearly and all this stuff, I don't need to be 4.0 millimolar. I can be 1.3 or 1.6 or whatever. And then on a P strip, I got nothing because I'm using it all.
Right.
So it's the body's wickedly efficient at this stuff.
So I'm curious. You said you're in ketosis right now.
Yeah.
Like what's kind of like a daily. What's your daily look
like
wake up food-wise? And what do you eat?
Wake up in the morning, have a cup of coffee, sometimes with cream and nothing else, and then don't eat until then I'll go to the gym. I usually start work and answer emails and
Train
write.
fasted.
And then I go to the gym around 10, fasted.
Yeah.
I'll do whatever workout it is. If it's an interval workout, no problem. If it's a Metcon kind of bodyweight Metcon thing, no problem. And then one of the benefits of this is when you finish a workout like that, you're not hungry. Where in the old days I would have been starving as a sugar burner, but now I'm not hungry. So I just go till 1 o'clock. Around 1 o'clock, I have a big fat bomb salad. So I have a big salad because people think, you don't eat vegetables on a ketogenic diet. That's accurate.
Yeah, that's. I don't know where that came from.
But a big bowl of like lettuce and a couple of cherry tomatoes and some broccoli strips or something like that, and some peppers and some cucumber, probably has 15 to 20 grams of carbs total. It's like almost non-existent. But then, and I make this awesome salad dressing, this Primal Kitchen salad dressing, and that's
great closer.
That's the fat bomb, and I'll put 200 or 300 calories worth of dressing on there. All of it's healthy fats, all of it's avocado. That's my lunch, and I might put some tuna on it. But these days, I'm cutting my protein down to one meal a day sometimes. So I might put a couple of pieces of cheese on. That's lunch. Might have some macadamia nuts in the middle of the afternoon, 4 o'clock or something like that, and then around 7:30, I'll grill up a steak and have some grilled vegetables or some steamed vegetables with a lot of butter on them. And at the end of the day, I've probably taken in 35 to 40 grams of carbs. 60 to 75 grams of protein. The rest is fat. The total of the whole package is far fewer calories. So many fewer calories than I used to eat that I almost can't believe that I maintain my strength and energy and mass on that. But it just proves to me that this is a cool way of not only eating, but a cool way of like saving the world because the other people can have the rest of the calories.
What was funny is I posted something the other day, which was, which is more sustainable for the planet, like vegan, vegetarian, paleo.
Yeah.
Someone's like, what about keto?
Yeah.
I was like, I didn't even really think about that, but you're eating
I'm saying
way less food.
Way less food, and you maintain the mass because you're just better at recycling stuff. And by the way, recycling stuff means your body is choosing to consume damaged proteins, poorly folded proteins, damaged fats, and all the debris in your cells that otherwise would be accumulating and clogging, causing aging. The body actually goes naturally with autophagy and eats it, consumes it, and recycles it or uses it for energy. It's a very efficient system.
Interesting.
Yeah.
When does your book come out?
October 3rd.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Check it out.
The Keto Reset Diet.
Awesome. Where can people find out what Mark's?
So Mark's Daily Apple is the site. my book is The Primal Blueprint, the new Primal Blueprint on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and bookstores everywhere. If you're interested in the healthiest foods around, the healthiest sausage dressings and toppings, that's primalkitchen.com, and they're in Whole Foods and on Amazon. We're the top-selling mayonnaise on Amazon. We're in Thrive Market if you're familiar with that.
We buy our food there.
Yeah, cool.
Some of our food. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for joining
Yeah.
us.
Thanks
for having me,
Thanks,
guys.
Mark. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Mark.